Hey Jason, how you doing?
What's up, sir? I'm great. Yourself?
Oh, I'm great, thank you. Thank you for joining us. For anyone that's joining us or watching the replay, this is Jason Figliano from Canadian Black Belt Academy, and he's the owner of Canadian Black Belt Academy and Gracie Humaita Academies, Bolton and Tottenham. It's 2 locations. He started martial arts when he was 7 and started teaching at the young age of 13, running schools when he was 21 years old. I can go on and on, but I'm going to give a few more points. As former consultant for MAUI, right? I think Maya, is that
Maui.
Right?
Yeah,
Maui, right?
Maui organization.
Maui, Canada, and MACS Canada as well. What does that stand for?
Max International was Martial Arts Consulting Systems.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay. Guest speaker for Empower Summits, which is martial arts empowerment. Can you explain that a bit?
Yeah, the Empower Summits are hosted once or twice a year, depending on the year, and they're done 3 different areas. You've got one in the US, you've got one in London, England, and you have another one in Australia. And I've been a speaker and a presenter at the US one consistently every year for the last 5 years, and last year I was at the Australian one.
Oh, wow. You didn't include that. I didn't know you were doing it every year. Australia as well. That must have been amazing.
I love it. Beautiful country, great weather, no snow.
Wow.
Amazing people. I mean, there's amazing people everywhere we go in the martial arts community.
Of course, of course. And I also want to mention some of your credentials, which just a few include that you're a 2nd degree BJJ black belt under Hoyler Gracie?
Correct.
Wow, that's amazing. Like directly under Hoyler himself.
Yep, I got my black belt in 2013 from Professor Paul Abel and Hoyler Gracie in Newmarket. And then I've gotten every degree after that from Master Hoyler Gracie as well.
Wow, that is truly an amazing accomplishment. You must have worked so hard for that. You also have a 5th degree black belt in karate as well.
Correct. I'm a 5th degree black belt under Kyoshi Trevor Lewis, and he's been my karate instructor since I was 13. So I started martial arts when I was 7.
Okay.
And then I moved up to Barrie, where I started with him at Lewis Karate Schools from 13 until current. I'm still his student. He's still very much my instructor.
Wow, wow. You know, I remember hearing of Master Lewis years ago, right? He must have been, he's still in business now too? Like, is he still teaching?
Correct. He's got the largest martial arts academy right now in Barrie. Very accomplished. I believe he's a 3rd degree under Master Hoyler. He is
wow.
Black belt in Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, 6th degree black belt in karate. He fought for Team Canada on the Canadian Jiu-Jitsu Association, the CJA teams, if you guys remember those.
I do, yeah.
And then I fought for them shortly after in 2004 was when I fought for them.
Yeah, you also fought in an MMA match.
I've done 4 amateur, I've done 4 amateur MMA fights.
Wow, that's awesome. Was that more before the UFC craze or kind of in it? Like, how long ago was that?
I always was preparing to do one. If you guys remember the old UCCs, a long time ago.
Oh, yeah.
Professor Dan Maroney, I told him I wanted to fight in that. We were trying to see if I could fight in that. And then before I got my black belt in 2013 from Master Hoyler and Professor Paul, I said I wanted to get in the cage and actually fight somebody. Because everyone's got a different idea of what their black belt should be. Mine was, like, I love watching sports jiu-jitsu. I think it's a beautiful art, and the stuff that gets done in that atmosphere is amazing. I gravitated towards more of punching and kicking people and hitting people with my jiu-jitsu. So I really enjoyed that. And that's from the karate background of striking, right? So I wanted to actually test myself out in an MMA arena.
I see. So your roots are more in the striking, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. Yeah, the original root of my discipline was always martial arts karate.
That's awesome. That's great. And that must have helped you, become, more of a martial artist before becoming a fighter. Does that make sense? Am I right here?
Absolutely. I mean, the martial arts code of conduct, the ethics of martial arts was always a staple in my training. So, if we look at a karate program, when I was starting martial arts in the karate program, we would always bow in and bow out. Yes. We would always start with some type of student creed. There would always be some type of message that the instructor was conveying that had to do with your attitude. or just your emotional intelligence, just to help us out in those cases, right? So I was a martial artist before I was fighting, and I always considered myself a martial artist fighting.
Oh, that's awesome.
And there's always three types of people. There's martial artists, and then there's fighters. And not all martial artists can fight, and not all fighters are martial artists.
Oh, that's a very good way of putting it. Yeah, that's so true if I think about it. But the ones that we are noticing recently, the ones that are becoming more martial artists first, tend to have a different impact on, I guess, their fans and other people around them. They have some type of code of ethics, almost like a way of living their life, right? And that brings me to, you choosing to, run your schools. Like, was this something that you chose to do, or were you pushed into it? Because at the age of 13, I mean, I can't even imagine at the age of 13 starting to teach, right? I started at 17, but 13 is quite a young age. Like, that's not easy. What happened from there? Can you start with there?
Yeah, absolutely. I was either 13 or 14. I can't remember how old I was exactly.
Yeah.
I'd attained my karate black belt when I was 16. So sorry, I would have started teaching around 14 or 15. Yeah.
Okay.
And you know what? It was one of those things where I never fit in with a lot of other things. I did soccer, wasn't my thing. I did baseball, wasn't my thing. I did rugby. I was successful at rugby, but that's because you could hit people as hard as you wanted to, and it was part of the game. So, that contact sport is something I really gravitated towards. And I grew up, your classic martial arts story. I grew up bullied. I was picked on a lot as a kid. And so to me, martial arts was the way to keep myself safe and protected. It's actually how I attained my yellow belt in martial arts. Was I defended myself at the schoolyard, and my old martial arts instructor saw that, and I got my yellow belt.
Oh, wow. Your actual old martial arts instructor saw you in an altercation? Is that
correct?
Wow, amazing. And you defended yourself first, I'm assuming.
Yep. I defended myself, and then and I can't remember if he saw it or if my parents told him about it. That was part of the reason why I went to my yellow. I mean, it's so long ago, right?
You're so young at that age, yeah, for sure. Now, at that age, you started teaching, and now you're like you've been bullied, and you've been against the odds, and now you're getting to a point where now you want to start your own your own teachings, your own students. Was there any reason, any driving factor that made you, who you are today? Because I see you as a person that is completely dedicated to daily putting your full effort into your student body, into the people that you're working with. Like, even when I was trying to arrange this interview with you, you were very on point with everything. You spent the time, writing out everything. And I just want to see, like, trying to dig in and see where that came from, right?
I would say that my two greatest strengths drew from my parents. My father's an entrepreneur. He's got his own successful restaurants that he's had all his life. And then my mother, I got the work ethic from her because my parents were separated. So I watched my mother hold down job after job, 2 jobs sometimes, to make sure that me and my brother had the life that we wanted to have and were taken care of. So I would walk on one end of the spectrum, what it was like to own the business, and another end of the spectrum, what it was like to work for other people. And then I started working when I was 13 years old as well, not only teaching martial arts, but doing landscaping, construction. I worked at Zayre's, bagging groceries. I did some desk work in a suit and tie. So I've done a whole scape of different type of jobs. And for me, it was really early on that I knew I wanted to help people out with martial arts, and I wanted to teach.
Yeah, so that's something so how do you bring the two together? Like, you understand from an employee and staff member's point of view, from your mother, hardworking. So I guess you understand how you want to see your mother treated. You want to treat probably your staff as good, because I see that you treat your staff very well too.
Yeah, the best way I can explain it is I've seen different modalities of how people have taught and trained their staff. Okay. And there's not one system that's fit for everybody. So I always say personality-driven systems. So I found a system that works for my personality to be able to get the most out of my staff. And if we take care of our staff, they in turn take care of our students, okay?
Yeah, very true, very true. And they do it because they want to do it, right?
Exactly.
Not because they have to do it.
And today's the staff I work with are teenagers, and people in their young 20s, early 20s. They're not the people we're used to dealing with in their 30s or 40s that are very money driven. A lot of these kids nowadays, they're very focused on the impact they can leave on people and they can have on people. So it's a unique challenge because in some instances where you can sit there and say, hey, I'm going to pay you more per hour, you might not gain the same excitement as sitting there saying, hey, I'm going to give you more responsibility because I believe in you more and pay you more per hour, because they love that responsibility because they know that they can take on more and they can affect more people.
That's amazing. So as a martial arts, your martial arts background also gives you that coaching into developing their life as well, and them maybe getting the gratification of enjoying what they do, that you're helping somebody, right? It's not just a job. Is that what you're...
Absolutely. I mean, I remember at a young age, parents coming up to me when I was 16, 17, 18, thinking I was in my mid-20s because of the way that I was conducting myself and the way that the kids looked up to me when I was teaching at U.S. karate schools. And it didn't really hit me how impactful that was to my personal growth, because then I would go and carry myself in life differently. I wasn't the guy that drank. I never got drunk when I was younger. I never did drugs when I was younger. I was not one of those partiers. I never got in trouble. I fought a lot, but that's a different type of trouble. And the reason why I never was like that was because I had to hold myself to a standard that the martial arts has put me to as an instructor. The last thing I wanted to do was to be a hypocrite on the floor, teaching a set of values and then not using them in life.
That's amazing. That's good. So you held yourself to those same values you're teaching, which makes it much more authentic, obviously, right?
Correct.
Lead by example.
Yeah, and no one's perfect. We all have our faults. We all have our things, right? Yeah,
absolutely, absolutely. And that's the whole idea, is keep learning. Now, let me ask you a question. Like, what in terms of, I see your unique approach in your business in comparison to others. That's obvious. I can see that you're looking at it from a few different angles. You also have the benefit of being in that position as working for someone as well, and staying true to that. I'm gonna fast forward now, right, to 2013, right? There was a big turning point in your life, right, where things just changed. And I want, if you can just talk a little bit about that. I know a little bit about it, but if you can talk about it. It has to do with debt, association of schools that were drowning in debt and all this mismanagement. If you can just kind of elaborate for our audience a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So martial arts has always been a part of my life. And in 2013, I was looking at walking away from martial arts altogether. I was looking at walking away from the training and looking at walking away from the teaching of it, because I was jaded. I honestly, having been in a certain association of schools, was seeing an underbelly of martial arts that at first you think is cool, at first you think is great because you want approval, because you want the person in charge to be, you want to be that, what's the word I'm looking for? You want to be that person's go-to student, We're always trying to please our instructors. And then I was realizing that I was running rampant. I was doing 110 hours a week of work.
Wow.
And the compensation was nowhere near it. I was struggling to make paycheck to paycheck. And I was part of a network of schools that was, like you said, just being mismanaged, being put into debt. Bills weren't getting paid. There was other things going on the side. So I had to make the decision. And I remember turning off my phone on a Friday and saying, I need to figure out if this is for me or if the people around me are no longer for me.
Wow.
And so I took an entire weekend, and on the Monday I came out of it and I realized I'm not done with martial arts. I'm done with the network I've surrounded myself with. So there's that saying that your net worth is based on your network. And I learned that like a slap in the face, the hardest way possible.
Yeah.
So at that point there, I made the conscious decision that I was going to do this on my own. I didn't know how, I didn't know by what means, but I would actually find a way to open up my own academy. And in the span of, I want to say close to 30 days, I had signed a lease, renovated out a school, dealt with a lawyer because we knew that something was going to come down the pipe.
Yeah.
Spoke with the lawyer, and He told me exactly how to do it so that I kept myself safe, which means I couldn't solicit any students. It meant that I couldn't advertise. I had to literally just open up. The beautiful thing is I had Master Hoyler Gracie on my side because I had the rights for Gracie, Humaita, and Bolton. And he knows me very well. I work with, he allows me to help out the association with their business side of things. And moving from that, I opened up. And within 30 days, and I had opened up down the street from my previous employer. And within 30 days, I had about 80, 90 students come into my door. And then, yeah, after that, it was a big turning point for me. It was the most scariest time of my life.
Yeah.
And not the scariest, but it was the most stressful time of my life. But I'm telling you right now, I look back on it, and if I can relive the lesson, I would relive every moment of it. Because pressures I faced, you know, the nights of no sleep, the driving to places with no music on, and then getting there and you have no clue how you got there because you're so stressed out.
Wow. Oh, man.
The day, running a school at night, dealing with a lawsuit, it was such a great endeavor that we look at what happened the last 13 months here in Canada with COVID, and it's not as difficult to me. It's not ideal, but it's really given me the tools to get through what we're going through now.
That's amazing. It's an amazing story. You know how, you know, I'm glad you didn't leave it, right? Imagine all the students, be letting down a lot of the students by leaving, right? To be honest. And now those students, I'm sure a lot of them are still with you, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah,
I was very fortunate. I've got students that have been with me now since I started teaching in this area. So they're 15, 16 years with me now.
Wow.
I've had, and when I left and opened up my own thing, I was demonized by a lot of martial arts school owners, a lot of students as well, because the story they were getting told was the one side of the story.
The one side, yeah.
Because I had to make sure that I wasn't getting in trouble in case a lawsuit did come, which it did, I had to just keep myself quiet. And over the last 2 years that followed, 3 years that followed, I had a lot of students reach out, a lot of other school owners reach out between here, Canada, the US, and Australia, and apologize for anything they'd said about me over those 2 years, because they only heard the one side of the story. And as the truth started to reveal, it really helped me out. I wasn't seeking it, which was great. And I wasn't sitting out there with a post and a sign trying to make myself
pull it in. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's a truly unique story. And now we come back. Now we're going to come forward. I want to talk, if it's okay, about the pandemic now. It hit last year. It's been over a year now. Like, and I remember seeing you take action. I remember seeing a small handful, you, Nick Castiglia, like a small group, right? You see a small group of people that chose to, you know, not just lie down, right? Yep. So can I just ask you that when it hit, what was your initial thoughts? And like, what happened? Tell me, what were you thinking?
It's really a funny story. I was sitting at a hotel in Brisbane, Australia, or sorry, the Gold Coast, having breakfast, and the newscaster was talking about this virus of flu out of Wuhan. And he said this, he goes, they're shutting down the flights to China, better stock up on your toilet paper. That's where the toilet paper crisis started. It started in Australia. And within a day, I remember Dave Kovar being on stage, and people were lining up down the street to get toilet paper in Australia. It hadn't hit Canada just yet. And that's where I sat back and I went, okay, this might actually be something important that we have to look at. So the 18-hour flight home from Australia, 2 days later, back to Canada, I basically spent all 18 hours writing out a what-if scenario. What if the schools were shut down indefinitely and we had to be fully online? So I spent 18 hours creating the entire brand new business model of how I'd run an online school, and then all the what-ifs associated with it. And then as well as, what if we're shut down, then we reopen, then we get shut down again? Because at the same point in time, I was researching different models that governments were using when it came to different type of, whether it was riots or viruses or pandemics or plagues. Governments have got models that they use.
Yeah, so that's right.
I go, like, what are the two worst case and best case scenarios I could have? I already have a best case scenario. My school's open.
Yeah.
But what's the absolute worst case scenario? And I landed, I had a staff meeting over 3 days. We did probably 3 or 4 staff meetings with my staff. I said, guys, this is what's going on. We're pulling the trigger. We closed for March break to get everything in place. And right after March break, everything was shut down and we were rocking and rolling. We had a full online program going. We had an app that was working everything we needed to work. All of my students were getting one-on-one private lessons once a week with all of my staff, so I could keep my staff employed as well as the students engaged, because we know not a lot of people can hold attention span in online classes. It's very hard. And I'm fortunate enough that I have a team of 15 staff under me that work with me. And they were able to take on groups of 30 one-on-one private lessons throughout the week.
So you were already prepared. Like, well, you chose to be prepared. There's a difference, right?
Exactly.
So you know, I mean, at that point, you didn't even hesitate. You just said, let me prepare for the worst case scenario.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Okay. So that's a big.
And that's just proper planning prevents poor performance. You know, and that's something that in the entrepreneurial world, it doesn't matter if it's martial arts or basket weaving. It's the same. Proper planning prevents poor performance.
Yeah, that makes sense. Makes a lot of sense.
And guys like Nick, right away, Nick Castiglia, we connected. We share a similar story with a lot of things, and so we worked a little bit together to try and bring together the martial arts community. I put a post out saying COVID doesn't cross the boundaries of rank, title, or style, so we need to come together and see how we're going to survive. And it was met with a really good group. I know the first meeting we had about 50, 60 school owners on it. We created an online group, Ontario Martial Arts Owners. And, we shared ideas. Like, this stuff was not, I didn't sell any of these products. I could have sold these products. It was like, guys, here's an entire PDF with 60 pages of an entire business model. Take whatever you can use.
I saw a lot of those posts, and I was just like, wow. Like, I was thinking, you know, like others, like, okay, it's just another month or two. Now we're sitting a year, and it could be going on longer now. Like, now you've impacted a lot of people for free. You didn't ask for anything in it, you know, in return, right? But what message do you have for those people that, you know, that they didn't pull the trigger, they didn't plan, and now they're in a state where they're just still sitting and they haven't done anything? Like, can they still, like, what can they do now? Should they prepare just to open, or should they, like, what should they do?
There's nothing wrong with having an online business model.
Okay.
So you couldn't start yesterday, start today.
Yeah.
Take what everybody's doing that's successful, implement it. There's no such thing as pulling the trigger at 100%. You pull the trigger at 80, 90%. 100% is a fictional number. If you sit there and say, well, I don't have all these things, so I can't do it, you're shooting yourself in the foot, and you're using something I call the plum syndrome, poor little old me syndrome. At the end of the day, no one's going to be there to save you. No one's going to be there to help you. And if you close down, the people that are in charge, they're not going to care. So you need to pull the trigger, and I guarantee you'll surprise yourself. Will it be easy at first? Absolutely not. But it's the drip theory. Every day, a little bit more falls into place. It's like for the jiu-jitsu guys out there. Every time I throw an armbar up or a new technique up, first time I do it, not even close. But every time I practice it and throw it up after that, little bits, it starts to come together. So if you haven't done anything with regards to your online programming, just start today. You know, contact your students. And we went a little bit above and beyond. I started phone calling students one-on-one. You know, that was important. And I've helped a couple school owners that are in the same position that you've talked to, Paul, that are saying, Jason, like, what do I do? And I said, contact every single student that's been with you for the past 2 years and just see how they're doing. Ask them.
You know what, Jason? I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm glad you brought that up. You basically posted that. That was one of the first things in the legacy group I saw. And you said, okay, guys, here's what you got. Here's a PDF. Here you can download. Now, hey, I got to go because I got to call hundreds of students. And you put a number there. And I was like, wow, is he really going to call everyone? And you personally called everyone, from what I understand.
Maybe I either called them or saw them in person somewhere, because we were on and off with classes, right? So if I saw them walk in my door, had a conversation with them. You know, if I hadn't seen them, we called them.
Wow.
And now I once I made that initial one, my staff took that over. My staff now, they know that they've got to contact their group of students. They've got to build warm relationships with them. And then we still reach out periodically. But when this whole thing started, a lot of people, a lot of our students and a lot of our parents, they had no clue where they were navigating from. They didn't know what was going to happen. The only source of stability was coming from, I want to say me, but from our team. You know?
Well, I mean, you know, you're saying that, yeah, I understand. And that brings me to my next question here. We're going to talk about marketing, if you don't mind now, right? Like, I know you're not thinking of marketing. I know that because I asked you, is there anything you'd like to promote? And your answer was nothing to promote. I just want to help the industry recover and grow from this. We value life skills, right? And you know what? If we can run businesses like that as entrepreneurs, right? Small businesses, we're not really, you know, we fuel the economy, small businesses, right? Like,
100%.
right? They make a lot off of us.
100%.
And we've been put through shut down now, do this now, boycott this. You're not allowed to do this. You're not allowed to do that. Rent still has to be paid. Everything has to be paid, right? And I know they give out subsidies and they do all this and that. I understand. But at the end of the day, they also are doing this to keep, you know, themselves afloat because they make a lot of revenue off of small businesses. And if they all decided to shut down, they're going to lose a ton of tax money, right? Absolutely. So now that brings me to, as an entrepreneur in that position, you have two choices. Well, you probably have more, but I'm just going to recognize two. You can buy into this whole boohoo, I'm screwed, you know, I can't do anything now. Like there's nothing, you know, I'm a victim, right? And I'm just going to wait it out. And, you know, it is what it is. Or as someone, the entrepreneurs like you, who have chosen to stand up and improve their businesses, do you think, like, you know, this is a blessing in disguise in a way, or you can turn it into a blessing in disguise? Or do you also, like, do you ever fall into that other group?
I'm not going to lie, I don't fall under prey. I'm not going to lie and say that I've never had that poor little old me syndrome. But
yeah, because I felt it too. Like
and if you don't feel it, you're not invested in it.
Yeah.
You know, because when you're invested in something, every emotion gets brought to the table.
Yeah.
The trick is to recognize every emotion and make all your decisions not based on them. Because emotions, whether they're good or bad in business, will affect the outcome long term. You know, I can make a decision in business that is emotionally driven by excitement, but it bypassed other things I didn't think about because my incitement overtook my rational mind. So speaking to when the point you brought up into this conversation at the very beginning of this topic was, you know, I didn't want to promote anything. I just wanted to see other schools get out of this. It's because I truly believe that we have a silver lining right now. And a lot of school owners are realizing that the culture they've bred in their academy, the culture of the school that they've bred, whether it's a school of martial arts or whether it's my butcher down the street, the culture of people, the way he talks to them, the way he interacts with them, it's what keeps your business afloat. You know, this is why the baseball leagues, the soccer leagues, they're hurting even more because the culture is competition and that's it. And sport, there is no culture. I always say this: if baseball, hockey, and soccer taught modesty, courtesy, integrity, self-control, perseverance, and indomitable spirit, if they taught those things, martial arts would have no use. You would put your kid in hockey and they would learn how to have better confidence. And they would, and people sit there and say, hockey's brought my kid confidence. Okay, I'll guarantee you, ask a parent this, sit your child down and say, who's the best player on the team? They'll have an answer. Say, who's the worst player on the team? They'll have an answer. And if you don't think the best player knows that and the worst player knows that and it doesn't affect their mentality, you got another thing coming.
So
and that's why I love martial arts, because martial arts, I could have 3 green belts on the floor in my karate program. And they ran out of 5,000 cards in 2 weeks, which is great, but it's also like 5,000 people ate at McDonald's. So I don't know if that's that great.
I mean, they're going to go there anyway. I mean, and then hopefully the people that, if they're going to McDonald's and they're not exercising, then at least they can get healthier, right? Yeah. So in a way, you're targeting the right people, but that's amazing. That's basically, I remember that from Jay Abraham used to talk about that. Or Jay Abraham from back in the days,
Yep.
Dan Kennedy, Jay Abraham, and he used to talk about that strategic marketing, right? The strategic alliances, he used to call it. But what I like is the unique way that you've used it, and you've honed it into like little systems everywhere, right? That you can use. That's win-win for, you know, the butcher and McDonald's and for both sides, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, and all my systems bleed into each other. Like my birthday party system bleeds into my host beneficiary system, where what I do is when you have a birthday party at my place, Forrester's Book Garden or one of the toy stores, I'll go get a book, a discount card from them.
Okay.
And I'll say, hey, as a birthday gift, you got a $20 voucher for the toy store in town. So
wow, it's amazing.
We're always working. I'm always trying to work with all the small businesses, because the people that shop local and are loyal to local will support you. And that's why we were able to stay strong throughout COVID.
Interesting. So if someone's like, you know, if some of our viewers out there, they don't own a martial art club, right? Like they have just any small business. What would you recommend to them? Can they also do these types of hosted, what are they called again? Hosted beneficiaries. Yeah.
So it's a host beneficiary, and it's basically the person that's hosting it. So the outside business. So if I own a t-shirt store and I want to do a host beneficiary with the nutrition place, I'll sit there and say, hey, I want to take your nutrition information. I want to post it at my place. And I was wondering if I can give you this card that gives everybody a free basic t-shirt, you know, just a basic t-shirt, black shirt on behalf of you. And the way you present it is, it's not a thank you from me. It's a thank you from you, the person that's hosting it. So now the supplement store is saying, here's a gift from us to you, not from them to you. So now the owner can sit back and say, I'm giving this to you as a gift, not here, because you spent this money, that guy's giving you the gift.
Ah, I see. So they basically get the credit for it.
Right.
But then at the same time, to redeem it, they're coming to you now.
Right. And then the second part to that is, if you can give them the opportunity to train, even better.
Okay. Yeah.
If I can get that business owner training at my place, I'll let them train for free. Because let's be realistic here. That person is going to talk every time somebody walks in their school or their so
yeah, that's really smart.
That's how we would do it. But from an entrepreneurial perspective, there is nothing that people do that cannot be replicated and adjusted for you. Period.
Got it.
I've walked into health spas where I've gone into the change room and there's been soaps, mouthwashes, disposable toothbrushes, and I'm like, this is what I want my bathroom to be at the school. I remember going to Las Vegas for Jason Sago's fight, and we're in one of these high-end, for his UFC fight, we're in one of the high-end hotels, and they had disposable toothbrushes. And I'm like, I started taking them. I took like 50, I brought them back, I put them out, then I went on Amazon, I found them, and now we have disposable toothbrushes because, you know, these little things that we don't think, we're like, that doesn't mean much. Yeah, but all the little things, they add up and they matter.
People do care about that, right? Like it sets businesses apart, you know,
Absolutely.
like for sure. That's amazing. So now I have another question. Now, as far as your systems, what's the expectation like for a system to, like, sometimes as entrepreneurs, we say, we're going to install this system, but we want it to be redlining at 100%. But realistically, systems also sometimes fail, and so do humans, right? 100%. What should the expectation be? Not fail, but maybe, you know, don't.
I can't give you a system that will be replicated on day one at 100%. It's impossible. Unless it was McDonald's. If I was to say, yeah, open up a McDonald's joint, 100%. Once those golden arches go up, the food tastes the same, everything's systemized there. But if another school owner's like, hey, I love this system, what can I reasonably expect to get out of it? I always say, take your best case scenario and bring it to 80%. We use a lot of the 80% rule. And I'm sure you've heard about it, where if someone calls us, we're going to book 80% of those people. And if 80% of those people book, 80% show up. So 80% is really, at the end of the day, 30%.
Once it trickles down, the funnel.
But when I say it's the system, it's the same thing. Execute at 100, and hope that you start to get 80% retention or return back. But
Yeah.
even if you get 30%, you're still going to eventually work your way up. And never take on a system and not give it at least 3 months behind it.
That was another question I had. How long, so give it 3 months, and then what do we do after that? Like, do we basically review it every month, week? Like, what do you recommend for somebody new implementing a system?
Stats are the pulse of a school or any business.
Okay.
I don't care what you do. If you keep your stats, you're gonna always have your finger on the pulse. With that being said, there's no stat that you can keep that will not in some way, shape, or form benefit you.
Okay.
If you want to keep a stat on males versus females and what classes they go to, you're then going to see which instructors appeal to what. So there's so many stats out there that once you keep those stats, you can then adjust the sales. But don't adjust the sales until you're 3 months in, because, and the real reason why I say 3 months is because I've utilized that. I find that after 3 months, it becomes a habit in the school. And then we can start making adjustments, because realistically, I've seen people execute a birthday party once.
Yeah.
Say no one signed up, so I didn't do them ever again. And it's like, okay, that's great. Let's look at the 10 kids that showed up. Oh, well, they're all relatives of them that live far away. Okay, do you think every birthday party is going to be like that? Well, I didn't think
good point. Good point.
And so
they're judging it too quickly then, right?
They're judging it too quickly. Absolutely. There's time for your system to settle within the school.
Okay.
It's got to become normal. You know what the purple cow theory is? If I'm driving down the road and I see a purple cow, I go, oh man, that's a purple cow. After 30 minutes of seeing purple cows, they're just purple cows now. There's nothing exciting about it, right?
Good point. So, good point.
When you do one thing one time, it's seen, but in order for it to become a staple, you want to go through the entire purple cow process. You want them to be excited, but then you also want them to be like, yes, this is always happening. I'm always seeing these purple cows. I know that the school's got birthday parties. I can't tell you, Paul, how many times I've gotten a phone call from a parent saying, my kid's birthday's in a week. Their party was canceled to this one place. Can we do a party at your school? And it's like, absolutely. I will move heaven and earth to do that for you. Absolutely.
Got canceled. So,
it happens.
So they're in a jam and they call you and you did it for them right away. You make it work.
Yep, absolutely. You'll again, if you can do it and you can make it work, it's never an inconvenience for you.
Yeah. But again, now this comes down to your drive, right? You're not, I know you, I kind of know you. I don't know you that well, but from what I see, you don't seem like a person that's driven for money, So, I mean, I'm sure you probably are in some way. You're an entrepreneur, but there's this other side of you. What drives you first? The money or the passion to help? Like what's your belief system around that?
I'm the same guy like you and me. Like I see that car driving down the street that's, $120,000 car. And I'm like, I want that. And the reason why I said 120,000, because I love this Dodge Ram TRX. That's my dream truck right now,
Nice. Yeah.
Can martial arts get me there? Yes. But is that what's going to get me to martial arts? No. I have to focus on martial arts, And so while I am driven by money, I'm more driven by my passion to make ethical money, to make the right money, to make money that when somebody sees me driving, they're like, that guy deserves that, as opposed to must be nice.
Yeah. I see your point.
Thing. So, everyone's different. There's nothing wrong with being in the martial arts to just make money. Absolutely. But if you're going to do it unethically, you're ruining it for all the martial arts schools. And even worse, you're ruining it for other students, potential students.
Yeah. That's the problem, isn't it? That's a big thing in our industry, And I know for myself, when I've had multiple schools, there was times where numbers mattered more than students. And I was like, who am I becoming? Like, this is wrong. Like, I don't want to be this person.
10 years, Paul, and I know the feeling.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
And you really start to look at yourself and you're like, you got to really do that reality check, right?
Yep.
Now,
don't get me wrong. Listen, we do our systems that are meant to drive our pro shop up. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We've got our summer t-shirt going on right now. But I'm also not sitting there requiring it. I'm not sitting there saying you have to buy a shirt.
Yeah.
I'm not sitting there pressuring you. You know,
yeah.
I'm not sitting there saying, sign up for 12 months. I'll give you 1 month for free, but you got to do it in the next 10 hours. And listen, there's nothing wrong with that. I want to make that very clear, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. If your school operates that way, power to you. Me personally, I just can't do it that way. It doesn't work.
That's amazing. Now, there's some people, Jason, what happens to them, and I've spoken to some business owners, they end up in a position like, you know, where they're being pushed from on top, from their landlord, their rent, their situation, their financial struggles, where they need the money, and then they compromise. They could, you know, it could happen where they compromise their values in these cases, right? How does someone, you know, and I know you don't have the answers to it all, but just what's your take on, like, how can somebody navigate through that type of financial pressure and really find, you know, who they are as an entrepreneur, right? And do the right thing.
That's a great question, because I've actually seen it done successfully. I've seen it where in the US, a guy is owed money for the IRS, and so he did this sale, but he did the sale knowing that the next because he did a 6-month paid in full. He did the sale knowing that the next 6 months, he's going to be struggling his personal life. He's not going to be traveling. He's not going to be going on expensive trips. He's not going to be eating out. He knows he's going to work hard, because in the 6 months that the student has paid him in full, if he doesn't supply amazing martial arts, they're not going to renew for the next 6 months.
Yeah, makes sense.
This is where we talk about the emotion versus the critical thinking, right? Emotionally, I don't want to be driven by the money and the need to get the money because I'm in a bad spot. I need to be driven by the practical sense that what happens in 6 months down the road when they got to renew, and I took everyone's money, and then I didn't offer a great service or subpar because I was stressed out, you know?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And you know what, like, looking back at the many years I was running the gyms too, it was the best times were, you know, when you just value the people, you come in with this positive vibe, you take one day at a time and just really bring that energy and that joy, right, to your students, and that love. And things at the front desk would just be like flourishing, you know, it's like some magical force at work here, right?
Yep.
You know, so like, how do you balance, you know, keeping in a certain mindset, keeping yourself in that, down that path, you know, obviously have all the systems going, yeah, but keeping yourself, whether you're a martial artist or you're a butcher or, you know, wherever you're at hamburger joint, how do you do that? Like, how do you keep yourself on that track, you know, mentally? What's the mental thought process? You wake up in the morning, Jason wakes up in the morning. What's he thinking first thing? Like, what happens in the morning? Right? Because it all starts there, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the night before, you're always reviewing the next day. Don't sweat the small stuff, because everything's small stuff at the end of the day.
Okay.
I mean, for me personally, I would along pre-COVID, I would wake up 5:30, 6, teach my private lessons till about 11, and then spend 11 to 12 on the business versus in the business. I'd take my midday break, and then I'd come back to the school. And at the time, now I have staff, right? So for me, it was no longer a one-man show. I wasn't wearing all the hats. I was able to delegate. So as a business owner, you have to understand that you're going to grind to the first 100 students. First 100 students, you're going to wear every single hat in the business. And by that, we mean you're the cleaner, you're the booker, you're the banker, you're everything.
You're everything, yeah.
And then you start hiring people. And the biggest lesson I learned is don't be afraid to pay people the right amount of money, because they can't just rely on passion alone, you know? I mean, and I said this earlier, I said, you know, today's society, they're driven by more than money.
Yeah.
Up to a certain point, you know? If you're hiring teenagers, they're looking at a vehicle when they're 16. If you haven't paid them adequately, and let's be realistic here, man, like for $15 an hour, they can go to McDonald's, push a button that drops a large Coke, fills it up, they put a lid on, they hand it to the drive-through. They made $15 for the hour. And now I'm telling them they got to, you know what I mean? Like, we have to find
good point. Very good point.
How do we perk them up? You know, and sometimes it's gas cards, it's Amazon cards. Sometimes it's reloadable Visa cards. It's like, hey guys, like, you know, one thing I did with all my senior staff, they've all got a reloadable Visa card, so they can purchase stuff that the school needs if they want it.
Oh,
they don't have to have it. So if they're like, hey, we're low on this, so I bought it and I used the reloadable card, you know?
That's amazing. Yeah.
You know, all the staff have access to our Uber account. So if they are stranded or if they need to get somewhere, even if they want to go downtown for a night, they just Uber it.
Yeah.
School covers it, you know?
That's great. So a little bit like other benefits. Yeah. Well, I mean, you're showing you're genuinely that you care about them, right? So it's going to be obviously different than how you say pushing the buttons and all that, right? Because time also probably goes really slow in those jobs as well, right? Whereas, you know.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
And when you're working with teenagers, never underestimate the value you give them either.
Yeah,
so
good point. Good
like
point.
a lot of school owners sometimes think that they have to work too much for their staff. They tend to forget that the life skills that the staff are learning are instrumental for their life skills later on in life. I've had staff walk into job interviews with less qualifications as other people in the interview and gotten the interview solely on the way that they conducted themselves because they walked in there like a black belt, like they were teaching a class. Well, they talked to them
true.
A one-on-one.
Yeah, it's so true. Even for us, like it was actually one of my students that built our software. It was like it was a gift because he felt that, you know, Paul, you've done so much for me when I was 17 and I became a software developer because of training here. You know how we said the person that you said there was those three types of people, the one that was always like mediocre in the skills but was a hard worker. So he became a champion in his career, right?
Yeah. That's amazing.
And he came back and it was a gift. He said, Paul, hey, Will, how you doing? He goes, oh, you remember me? And of course I remember you, right? And it's been like 10 years and whatever, but how's everything? He goes, I became a software developer, right? And I want to do something back for you that's done so much for the gym. Long story short, you know, I didn't take the free gift. I paid him for it. But now we have a software company because of, you know, of his gift, right?
And that's amazing.
And those are the stories that I value the most, right? Like, I mean, it's great, like Valtellini and Gary and all this stuff. It's all amazing at that level. But you know those stories, Jason, when you hear, you know, those small stories that are supposedly small, how you impacted their lives?
Yep.
Those are just phenomenal, right? Phenomenal.
I find sometimes as martial arts instructors, we don't allow our students to have those conversations with us because the Joe Valtellinis and the Gary Goodridges overshadow. A student sits there and goes, well, I'm not going to tell my instructor about how martial arts helped my addiction problem because they're training UFC champions. They don't need to hear about that.
Yeah.
I want to hear about that.
Yeah.
I don't care who. I want to know the fact that the 6 months you spent here kept you clean for 6 months. I want to know that the 5 years of you attaining your black belt allowed you to get your dream job because you cited the discipline and the focus, you know?
Yeah.
That's the rewarding part. And that's the part, like you just explained with your student, the karma that comes around.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure you hear those stories all the time. And then you're like, okay, let's just get back to work. But we need to push out those stories more in our community. Don't you agree? Like we need to, like, I'm not sure why, but we as a community are always glorifying the championship belt.
Yep.
Right? Like if you look on Facebook, it's always like this fight happened, that fight happened. But if our community was to kind of push this more, and that, you know, I'm guilty for that as well. You know, I'll talk about it, but it's like, it's not shiny, I guess, but it is shiny if we were to portray it.
I think it's just balance. I think if you're going to promote the championship stuff, you got to promote the human stuff as well, you know? And I think we should be promoting it for each other. Like if your academy posts how a student was struggling with addiction and you've helped them overcome it, I should be able to repost that and be like, this is a positive influx of martial arts without my ego getting inflated saying, oh, I'm not going to repost his stuff because he's a competing studio. I don't care. Like, and I've done that. I've reposted other martial arts schools' success stories only to have the other person delete it on their end because they don't want me reposting it. And I go, what are you doing? Like,
it's
I'm not
wrong.
Ready for it. You know?
You're just trying to help. But then you're right that some people take it very defensively. I noticed that too. Like when you're genuinely trying to help, some people, they, you know, like you said, the ego gets in the way a lot. And for the, you know, I guess it's really hard to, you know, show other owners that, hey, you know what, like, I really am genuine. I do want you to do well. I'm not trying to be, you know, like, a monopoly or anything, right? I'm trying to be with you, not against you, right?
Never, never. I always say this to my clients and when I talk. The best thing that could ever happen in my academy, in my town, is the town passes a law that all martial arts schools have to be in the same plaza. That would be the best thing ever. Why? Then people have to only drive one place and make one stop to find out why we're the better option than the rest that's out there.
Wow, so, that's a statement.
If you open up next door to me, Paul, my work ethic goes this way or it goes this way. That's it.
Yeah, good point.
You know? And so if I had no martial arts schools in town, I'd be a little worried. I would start now wondering, okay, what am I not doing right? Because I don't want to be, what's the word? A friend of mine said it. He goes, he was looking for a specific pizza and he couldn't get it at this restaurant. They said they had this and he goes, it's good enough. I never want to be good enough. And if I'm the only school in my town, that means I'm always going to be just good enough. I want to be better than. I want people to walk up, look at 5 logos and say, you know what? I hear everything about them. Their Google reviews, their Facebook reviews. You know, parents are talking about them. I'm going to go to them. But I also want the people that don't have that knowledge to walk into each school and find out why each school is different and what separates each other's school.
Yeah, and I'm sure you're okay with, hey, if you choose that school, all the power to you, right? Like it's
as long as you're training, as long as you're training martial arts, you know, as long as that school. Because a lot of people know me in the industry. I have no problem calling people out that are abusive. As long as that school is doing it for the right reasons. Because we both know there's schools out there that are just toxic schools. And people leave the academy and never train again because they think all jiu-jitsu or all Muay Thai schools are the same. And that drives me crazy.
Yeah. And I used to tell the staff, I say, listen, guys, when you're doing a tour or you're doing a trial and you're asking them to sign up later, like, you know, do your best to give them a good welcome, of course, right? Make them feel at home and make them feel welcome and make them, you know, show them the passion of martial arts, right? Let it sell itself. Don't try to push it on them, right? But just remember that when you do follow up with them and get them to come in and more and get involved, you really don't want to lose that one person, because what martial arts has done for my life and your life and all of us, you know, they could be missing out on, how you said, because if they're doing it for the wrong reason or they're doing it irresponsibly. Now, little Timmy that missed out on martial arts, his whole life it could be much better.
Absolutely.
I can't even imagine. Like, I think everyone should do martial arts. Like, everyone. Like, if everyone did martial arts with proper guidance, can you imagine?
Well, look at the societies where a high part of the society actually do martial arts.
Yeah.
The streets are literally cleaner because we have this idea that, how many times have you been in the dojo and people pick up the garbage like that or clean up or mop the floor? Like, I've got students that start mopping the floor. I'm like, guys, put the mops away. That's my job. And they're like, no, we want to do it.
Yeah.
As much as I don't like that idea, I think it's important, you know, because they show respect. And they got to carry that forth outside the school.
Yeah.
How many times have you been to a baseball game and you see people throwing garbage on the floor and not caring?
Yeah. Yeah, very true.
Drive-throughs where I've seen kids throw out entire boxes of Timbits, and I've gone there, picked out, thrown back in their car. It's like, guys, what's going on?
Yeah, you know? Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's
amazing. But that's definitely a mission that you're on. I can see that. And do you have any last advice for entrepreneurs out there, or martial arts owners, any entrepreneurs in general, like something you can give before we?
I mean, find what your passion is and then exploit it, and know when you're going to get burnt out, I think, is a big one.
Makes sense. Like,
listen, I love teaching. I love instructing. I love birthday parties, but I was doing too many of everything. I had to give it to other people. Like, I think summer camps are the most amazing thing beneficial for your academy. Remember I said personality-driven systems? But if I have to run summer camps myself, I'll walk off a bridge, because it's just, I've been doing it so many times, and I'm doing so many other things.
For sure.
Now, if you were like, hey, take a month off and just do 1 week of summer camp, I'd be like, yeah, no problem. That's easy.
So how do you do that, though?
I love it, but I also have to know when to delegate it before I get burnt out and cause myself harm. And that's with anything in business, you know?
For sure.
3 months, 3-day rule. Every 3 months, I take 3 days vacation. Whether I travel for 3 days, whether I close my phone for 3 days, but 3 months, 3 days is always a rule. And that's a minimum 3 days. My goal is to be 3 months, 1 week. Every 3 months, 1 full week off. where it's an actual legitimate vacation. And yeah, pull the trigger at 90% because nothing's 100%. And if you think you have something at 100%, I guarantee you someone else out there is doing it at a better 100% than you are.
Yeah, it's very true. Very true. That makes sense. Oh, wow. This was amazing. I could go on for hours, and I hope we can do this again in the future.
Absolutely. It'd be my pleasure.
Yeah. And yeah, so Jason Figliano, thank you very much for your time. Canadian Black Belt Academy. I love what you're doing. I love your mission. And thank you for joining us. I really, really appreciate your time.
I appreciate your time. And for any of the other school owners out there, you know, my number's there, my name's there. If you have questions, call. And listen, anything I said, it was not meant to offend or upset anybody. And it's just a different perspective. If you're successful with things that I said I am not successful with, power to you. Send me how you're being successful with it, because I'm always looking to grow as well.
That's amazing. Great attitude. Amazing. Again, no offense to anyone for anything that was said. Everything is, you know, our opinion and our experiences. Jason is on a mission to help. So please, martial arts school owners that, you know, that are having trouble, or even if you're not having trouble, just reach out and let's network. Let's together be strong. I really love what he's doing. And, you know, I wish I had this when I started our school years ago. But better late than never. Thank you again, Jason.
Thank you, sir. Have a great day and take care, everybody.
You too. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.